Yep.
Yeah.
Man.
Well, guys, thanks for joining, guys. I think some of you guys aren't on Facebook, so let me kind of explain what's going on here. Last year, during the lockdown, we all had probably a little bit too much time on our hands. We started a Facebook group for Northern Virginia basketball players, and so a lot of us reconnected, not just players but coaches, officials, fans, and we started talking about the old days, narrow wins, big losses, and all the great history that binds us. And it's been a great ride for all of us to get together, network. I'm sure Sean and Jeff Miller sold lots of mortgages to the group. Lots of networking going on. But anyway, along the line, I started doing podcasts because I realized we had a lot of rich history that we should preserve. And near the beginning, one of the requests was, why don't we get certain teams together, like getting like South Lakes, like Mount Vernon, TC Williams, some of the players from certain generations of teams together, and just talk about some of the games and some of the seasons that they had. And I thought that'd be a great idea. So anyway, the first one we're doing is Mount Vernon, and which might sound like a nightmare to a Robinson player and fan, because I didn't do too well against Mount Vernon football or basketball. I think my career record for like 1-20. I finally got Derrick Steele. So Brook Rental was a great summer league for many years. And Derrick, I think Brian, and also Eric, they dominated the league. And then the last year we played, I think I had a team with Weaver Blondin and Todd Blondin, and we finally won a close game. So my first time in my career, I beat the Mount Vernon boys in a contest. But anyway, that's just very, very few good nuggets to share amongst a bunch of losses over very, very many years. So anyway, thanks for doing this, guys. We got Brian Miller. Brian is the guy that I played against going back to county. We called it county back then for many years. Great player. I don't think I've ever saw a player improve as much as during his high school years as Brian. He became unbelievable outside shooter his last year. Too bad there was no 3-pointers. But anyway, we got Brian Miller. We got Andre Priest. We called him Andy, a guy that I guarded. He guarded me. Great defender, scrappy player. Just we always tried to play defense like Andy in high school. And then we got Frank Smith, who was a great point guard, great quarterback. Guy just handled himself a lot of class and got it done. Ended up having a great career at Old Dominion and coaching at various places as well. And then Derrick Tucker. Derrick is somebody who would, unfortunately, because of timing, probably didn't get the exposure at the high school level that he should have got, because his last year the team was on couldn't play in postseason. But Derrick was a great post player. Everyone around DC, Northern Virginia, knew exactly who Derrick was. And then Derrick Steele. Derrick was a great point guard. He had a great career at Mount Vernon, also football player as well. And then went to Madison. And he was the guy that I got a chance to watch at the old field house at George Mason play against Andre Gaddy and Andy Bolden, John Niehoff, all the old school guys at George Mason. Derrick did battle with those guys, and eventually made it into the NCAA tournament with Madison. You guys, I think Landon Towns was on your team, Derrick.
Yeah, that was Linton Towns.
I'm sorry, yeah, Linton Towns. But you guys had some nice runs. You had a nice run in the tournament one year. So anyway, guys, thanks for doing this. So anyway, I gave a brief introduction. Why don't we just start and go around and just, you guys kind of introduce yourselves and just kind of talk about, where you grew up, kind of like your history before you got to Mount Vernon. Why don't we start with Brian Miller?
Okay. I grew up in Alexandria. I lived over by Landmark in the TC area, but we moved to Mount Vernon when I was in like the 4th grade. And I grew up in the Mount Vernon youth sports and playing county from Mount Vernon. And right through Mount Vernon High School. Went to Walt Whitman Intermediate School and always wanted to be playing for Mount Vernon. Went to all the summer camps, saw Derrick, Junior Brown, all the guys from that state championship team. So that's what I wanted to do. I always wanted to be on the Mount Vernon basketball team. That was, that's what I look forward to being on when I was a youngster. I watched Mount Vernon win that regional championship against Woodson when I was in the 7th grade. And I came home and told my dad, that's what I want to do. I want to be in that game, when I'm in high school. And luckily enough, I was able to do it my senior year. Would have loved to have done it my junior year, but we weren't able to do it. But I was able to do it my senior year.
Yeah, great.
Yep.
Andy, why don't you go next?
All right. Grew up on Route 1 in Gum Springs. Grew up with Paul and Derrick Tucker. Literally, I've known them since I was 4 or 5 years old. Played Mount Vernon youth with Brian. Didn't make the county team, but our senior year, I ended up being on the team where a lot of those guys weren't. So, I was happy with that. Pretty much.
Yeah. Hey, Frank, why don't you go next?
So yeah, I grew up in Alexandria as well. Lived in the Delray area. So, had a lot of memories from growing up in that area. A lot of talented athletes that I grew up with and around. So I was in Alexandria until I transferred to Mount Vernon my sophomore year. And like you said earlier, you mentioned earlier, played football and basketball and had success on both levels. We had some great teams. And so we were able to do some great things. But it all started at Alexandria for me. That's, I could still consider that home. Still have some lifelong friends from that area that, obviously I had to compete against once we got to the high school level. But, it really shaped who I became as a person, as a player. But, getting to Mount Vernon and being in that position with some other good players was really beneficial for my career. Not only from a playing standpoint, but from a coaching standpoint. So, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. Derrick, why don't you go next, man?
Okay. I grew up, as Pre said, I grew up, in Gun Spring along with him. But before, that was my grandmother's house. But before I was down the highway, or the highway as they call it, I grew up down in the Groveton area because I went to Bryant middle school. So I knew a lot of guys down that end. And once, my grandmother passed, and that's when me and her mom moved into that house, and I was in the Gun Spring area for good. That was our house then. And transferred. I didn't transfer. I went to Mount Vernon on a pupil placement, to get there. Once I was there, I always wanted to play ball at Mount Vernon. I know I want to say some things, but he's probably going to ask me some questions on that. So save it till then. But yeah, grew up right there in Gum Spring, man. So down there when also on the state team, Eric Sellers. He stayed right down the street from me. So once I heard about Eric Sellers at Mount Vernon, I said that was the school I want to go to because how good he was a shooter, and that's all they used to talk about. How Eric Sellers used to shoot it deep down there. I'd never seen the team see the guys played. I never seen them play in 2019. Yeah, that was it.
Yeah. Derrick Steele, how about you go next?
Well, I guess my story is a little different. I'm a military brat, so I was all over the place. Lived in California, then came to Virginia, left Virginia, went to Hawaii, lived in Hawaii for 4 years or so. Actually came back and I was going to Hammond High School. I would have been going to TC. We moved out to Mount Vernon when I was in the 11th grade or beginning of 11th grade. And, that's the year that we won the state championship. That was my first year at Mount Vernon. And then went on to go to, play football. We got a chance to get in the football regionals. We went to the state in my first year there as well, or my second year there. And so we were really excited about all the things that were going on. But yeah, I was a military brat. So as I went through, I got to a point where some guys were telling me I wasn't even going to make the team because I didn't grow up in the area. So, but hey, you gotta battle through that, and was tested and all that stuff. And I think Derrick Tucker was talking about Eric Sellers. I remember seeing him actually when I was playing at Hammond. I saw them play against TC, and Eric Sellers just went off. That dude, they called him six shooter, and he could shoot.
Mm-hmm.
So he was one of the guys that I knew that I had to go play with, and then had to compete against because he was a senior and I was a junior.
Wow, great. Sean, just real quickly, just kind of introduce yourself and kind of tell me.
So,
Hey Sean, I'm gonna come back to you. You got some background noise that we'll have to yeah. So hey, so guys, why don't we talk about why Mount Vernon? So Mount Vernon was a very wealthy area of the county, and then as between like 1966 and 1990, the demographics changed, and it became a very diverse area, economically as well as racially. What was it about Mount Vernon that there were so many great teams, football, basketball? What was it about the culture of Mount Vernon that made it such a great place for sports teams? Anyone want to go first?
I go.
Okay.
I think what made us great, it was a group of guys that we had that really wanted to play and work out. I mean, it was like every day we knew we had to be at the gym. If we want to get better, we knew what we had to do to get better. And what embedded that into us was the coach. The coach, he told us, basketball it's not during the season, it's off season.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what did a lot for me. And once we had that group of guys that wanted to play every day, that's what did it for us. We had a group of guys that wanted to do something, and every day we was at the gym every single day. We didn't take a day off, and that's what brought us together right now. Still,
I agree with Tuck. It just from 8th grade through my senior year, I was at the gym every time it was open. I mean, that's how we all got better, and we played against good players every single day. It wasn't, we didn't take a day off. Every day I'm going up and being defended by Andre, Boo, Tuck, Frank, Fish, everybody, Derrick. It makes you a better player. So when you go against, other teams who may not be as good defensively, it was like, wow, this is, pretty easy, at times. And I just think we just all wanted to get better. One year, I played baseball my first 2 years. And then when I was a junior, team was ramping up, and I'm looking over at the field at the gym as the guys are going in the gym, and I'm like, man, I'm not getting any better. So I quit. I went back. I just wanted to concentrate on basketball. And, we were playing every day. And Coach McCool used to always say, all the other teams in the summer, their kids are going to the swimming pool. We're not going to the pool. We're playing. And we did. We played every day. Some of us went to Fort Belvoir at night and played. We played all the time. We just, that's how you get better, by playing all the time. And I know we didn't have the AAU that the kids have now by playing every weekend, but we still played. We played a lot of basketball. And we had kids coming from other schools coming to play because they weren't playing it in the summertime. So we had kids showing up, and it was the place to come if you wanted to play, especially in Alexandria, that part of the Fairfax County area.
Well, like some of you guys actually, transferred to the Mount Vernon area to be there. So Frank, did you feel the same way going in? I know you mentioned on an earlier podcast, your parents preferred Mount Vernon for academics, but did you also know about their sports program, and that was one of the reasons why you wanted to go to Mount Vernon?
Well, back in that day, especially, I mean, we're a long ways from social media back in that day, but I mean, you gain a reputation, and the person that you heard about when you talked about Mount Vernon was Coach Don McCool. He was a name. He was a person that people knew about, even in Alexandria. And, I wasn't the first to transfer out from Alexandria to Mount Vernon. Obviously Derrick did, as well as a whole list of other players that transferred out of the city. But not just to Mount Vernon, but to other schools as well. So I think going into that situation, I didn't really know anything about Mount Vernon. As we talked over the years with this group of guys, I mean, I found out that Tuck played football, and I played against him. And I remember playing against him in a scrimmage when I was at Hammond. So
I don't remember that, Frank. I swear.
yeah, I remember. I remember it.
Hey, I was busy on defense. I was all playing defense, boy. Hey, like
Yeah.
who would tell you?
So I mean, I think the fact that Coach McCool had a reputation, and sometimes a reputation can really, maybe get blown to a proportion that's maybe not quite reality. But in my situation, and I think I said this earlier, it just was a situation where, my parents were dead set against me going to TC Williams. And so it was just convenient at that particular time that the woman who became my father's wife lived in the Mount Vernon area. I mean, I took visits to some private schools in Alexandria to see what they were about. But, we settled on obviously going to Mount Vernon. And I didn't know anything about the football or basketball situation they're going in, other than the name Don McCool. And so, obviously I didn't know any of the players, but I knew that he was the basketball coach there, and he had a really, really good reputation for getting kids to college and, that kind of thing. So, but like they said earlier, we just played, and AAU was not what it is today, but I think, a few of us did branch off sometimes and play, AAU events with different teams, and going over to DC when that wasn't even a thing yet. But that got us better as well. So it was just a good experience, and just something that worked out well for me. And just, I think I was just another piece of the puzzle of a group of guys that were already there.
So Derrick Steele, you were just moving in, and Mount Vernon had Atlee Hammaker, great athlete, and Don McCool just, I guess, moved over from West Springfield. So what did you think about Mount Vernon coming in? And did you have any idea that Don McCool was the kind of coach that he was?
Had no idea. It was kind of funny because when I was a freshman in Hammond, I didn't play. I was like the 13th or 14th man, and I was hot about it. But my sophomore year, I started. You know what I mean? So it was kind of weird. But then when I transferred, one of our top point guards at the time said, "Oh yeah, well, you're going to go to a great school. Or you're going to go to a school with one of the greatest coaches, Don McCool." I'm like, okay. I didn't know who he was. I had no idea. So when I went over, got a chance to play in the summer league. That was kind of the first time I got a chance to meet him. A guy named Dave McKnight was our coach. I didn't know who he was. I didn't know any of those guys. My thing was I had to compete to just be able to make it on the team. And because when I was a freshman and I didn't play, that wasn't happening again. So for me, it was just going out there and competing with everything that I had, not knowing who Coach McCool was at the time, knowing that was his first year. And, I didn't understand why he moved over there at the time. I learned about it later. But, it was just a great marriage from the beginning. And I think what it did is it created a place where people wanted to go because he was there. You know what I mean? And he made impact immediately in the area. I guess he had made impact at West Springfield, which most people knew, but I had no idea. So I was just kind of blessed to be able to come at the time that I did. And I think it was a great marriage when it happened.
So Derrick, your first year at Mount Vernon was 1979, the year they won the state. That was your first year?
Yeah, 78, 79. Yeah. Don McCool. Yeah, he was coming in. I came in. So people, I played football, of course, and we competed against Fort Hunt, and they won the regional in football. And I just could not stand losing anything. But we lost that game, and then, we didn't get to the region because we were 8-2 and they were 9-1. Rocky Belk and Miles, the other guy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
they were just the best people on earth. But our guys were so at all, and I was like, man, I don't really care who they are. You know what I mean? We need to compete and beat them. So the next year we did pretty well and got to the regional and went to the state and all that stuff. But man, I just couldn't stand losing. Period. So that was just who I was and what I was bringing to the table.
Going into that year, I watched the games at regionals, and so I saw the run, and I think I might have listened to the state games on the radio. So it was an amazing run. But going into that year, I know you guys didn't have much height. Were you guys favorites going in to be one of the best teams in the region, or did that year just kind of work out in your favor?
Yeah, I think the year before, I mean, Mount Vernon really wasn't on the map. I think what happened, it was just a bunch of guys. I think where I came into play, and Coach McCool told me this, is I was able to orchestrate the madness because we had guys that could run, but they didn't really want to play defense. So I was the anchor on the defensive end. And so we got at it because we would press you from the beginning to the end. And but the person that I always give credit to for the skill set that I brought to the table was my brother, because we would play one-on-one full court before people got to the gym, and then we turned around and then we played. So we kind of started some things, and we weren't trying to start anything. I was just trying to get better and learning how to compete, because if my brother had to come in before I would have, people wouldn't even know Derrick Steele. They would know Kelvin Steele, because that dude could play. And so what people see of me, I gleaned from him, and it just allowed me to be better and be able to compete with a team that was pretty good.
One thing I've seen on the Facebook group is Eric Sellers is his legendary shooter, but if you read the newspaper clippings and stuff of that time, he didn't start at state. So I guess somewhere in the process, Coach McCool must have had to tweak things around and kind of try to bring Eric off the bench. What was kind of the process? You were saying before that you had guys that want to play defense. What was kind of the process to get you guys towards a team that would beat Petersburg and actually win the state tournament?
Well, I didn't start the first game, but I started everything after that. And part of the reason I did is, my dad he coached me when I was young, and I was a coach on the floor. So my job was to get everybody else the ball, to make sure that we because you had too many guys that could shoot, you know what I mean? And too many guys that wanted to score, but nobody really wanted to distribute. So I was a pure point guard if you were hot, I'm gonna get you the ball. And I guess Coach McCool saw that, and he inserted me into the lineup, which gave, I don't think I was one of the top 5 best players on our team, but I was the orchestrator, you know what I mean? And dished the ball out to people the way that I needed to, which allowed us to be very, very successful. I think we scored over 100 points at least 7 or 8 times. We only lost to one team, that was Groveton. You know what I mean? And we understood that because they had the same kind of talent that we did. But Eric Sellers, man, he was the man. And it was difficult I don't know what Coach McCool said to him, but when he came off the bench, I guess he helped him understand that we had 8 starters, and he was one of them. But Eric, he was gracious about it. When he came off the bench, he was ready to go. And so as soon as he came in the ball game, we knew to get him the ball. So that was kind of what happened in that scenario. And but in the state championship, he didn't play the first game. And so me and him were roommates, and I had to wrestle with him actually for 2 hours because he was going to walk away because he didn't play. I said, man, we need you. I said, this next game is going to be your kind of game. And we played against Maury. And I tell you what, if it wasn't for Eric Sellers, we wouldn't have won that game.
Yeah. So just a little bit of background. The first game was Petersburg, and they had Mark West, 19-year NBA career, and they were rated in the top 20 in the USA the whole year. So you guys actually held the ball in the semifinals. So you probably didn't need the kind of scoring power that Eric had because you weren't trying to score. Is that right?
Well, yeah. Well, Mark West, he wasn't the guy we were worried about. We were worried about the guy named Darryl Stiff, and Darryl Stiff actually looked like and reminded us of Charles Barkley. We had nobody that could stop him. So that's why we decided to hold the ball. And I remember Junior Brown was like, man, what are we going to do, hold the ball against these dudes? He said, we could play against anybody. He said, nah, we can't because we don't have anybody that can stop them. So we had to rotate. The first 2 plays were dunks by them. Tip, pass, dunk. Second play, Junior Brown goes in for a layup, got his shot punched, tip, pass, dunk. We were down 4-0, and Junior said, "Oh, okay." So then we started holding the ball, and as we did that, that that's the only way that we could beat them, and we did it. I think we went in overtime with them, but they had never lost, and that was their first loss, and thank goodness we beat them.
Right, and then the Maury game. Maury was probably the Eastern Region champs, Norfolk team. They were more your size, so you guys went up tempo with them. So Eric was more helpful.
They were they were the fastest team that I've ever seen. I didn't see us, so I don't know, but they had a guy named Quentin Moore that was just lightning quick, and they had another guard who threw a full court bounce pass. He looked like Frank Smith to me. He just throwing passes everywhere and all the stuff that was happening. And we looked at that, and that was crazy. And I actually only played in that game for probably about 10 minutes. So that's when, it was run and gun, let's go play. And that wasn't necessarily my style at the time, but Eric Sellers was really, really key. So I know he was substituted in. There was a few other people that came in, and I tell you what, it was just phenomenal to watch. And again, we didn't have Eric Sellers, we wouldn't have won that game.
Yeah, it's great when coaches have the flexibility and the independence to choose a lineup that can help them win a particular game. Oftentimes, parents won't allow that. If their kids don't play every game, they're going to complain to the administration at a school. But the reality is, matchups are so important, and a coach that has the ability to do that is going to be more effective. Were any of the other guys at those games, watching those games down at State?
I was there. I was in seventh grade. I went to almost all the games. My parents took me to all the games. The state tournament, I went to the semifinal game, but I went with a friend whose father drove down, but they came home after the game. So I didn't see the state championship game. I did see and Derrick's right, they were big. I mean, I barely remember the game. It was a long time ago. I do remember they got a couple dunks early, and I remember we held the ball, but since I wasn't playing, I don't remember it as vividly as Derrick probably does. I do know it was a good game. It was a low-scoring game, and we won. I was a little kid. I was rooting for my school, but I don't remember it nearly as much as Derrick probably does.
Yeah. Did it occur to you guys back then that a Northern Virginia team winning the state tournament was a big deal? I mean, because what happened was after '81, after Lee won, Charlie Thompson's team won with Tony Ferris and Rod Wood and those guys. We didn't win a state tournament until 2008. It was all dominated by teams from mostly Norfolk, Virginia Beach, but definitely not Northern Region. Did it occur to you guys at the time that Northern Virginia was outgunned compared to the rest of the state?
Julian, the only thing I want to say is, didn't TC win the state championship before Mount Vernon?
They won in '77, and then Garfield won. Garfield won in 1980. And then
and then Lee won in '81.
81. So at the time, I guess, the way Derrick Steele was describing the talent, they sound great, but there was no reason for us not to believe in ourselves at that time, right?
Right.
Yeah, I really wasn't aware of, who won the state championship. The only team that I knew, because I was in Alexandria, was TC Williams, was the '77 team that I followed. And I followed TC up until the time I left, but I wasn't aware of, the other teams that were winning or hadn't won the state championship. But, you quickly learn about it once you got to Mount Vernon. And I think it goes back to, again, what was making us great, because Derrick used to come back and play with us. And,
exactly.
There was no, better, person to compete against.
Right.
In terms of getting better, a few other people, and that just made us better. And that was part of the program, was the former players coming back and competing against the kids still in school. So that was really a big help.
Yeah.
I always wanted to say that, there was Coach Steele that you would play against, that played with you on the court. Then there was Derrick Steele that you played with on the court. A lot of us played with Derrick Steele. And Derrick was just, as Frank said, Derrick brought it and demanded you to bring it every time. So, going against that type of talent all the time, especially seeing him and Frank go after each other. And we're talking about Derrick is sophomore in college and coming back, and him and Frank are just, playing, going after it. So it was just great, to see that and learn from it and, push yourselves to it with him. So I give Derrick a lot of credit for the things that my team did and the year before that did. He gets a lot for us.
That's what a program's all about. When the alumni can come back and they buy in and have ownership over what's going on in the program, it makes the program that much better.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So Derrick Steele, that was your junior year. So you came back your senior year. What happened that year? I believe TC won the region your senior year. Is that correct?
I have no idea. What I remember about that year is, the people really were frustrated with what was going on with us winning. TC was really upset with us winning, and they actually did a kangaroo court on us and took away games and all that stuff. So we were, we had only lost 2 games. And then they claimed that we had a couple of ineligible players. They came from Alexandria too. Barry Minor was one of them, and Danny. I don't remember what Danny's last name, but Danny Buffett, was the other person. But and there was one other person that we had that was there.
Mike Reed.
Mike Reed. But the challenge with that is there was no real evidence that, people hadn't moved. But see, that was the thing about winning. You win a state championship and people wanted to come. But the thing about it is, I know this, I'm very careful to say this because, at Alexandria, there was the desire for people to be successful. But I think Frank had said it as well. Internally, you understood the reputation that was there. So academically, there was colleges weren't coming to look at you. And I didn't know any of this stuff. I had no idea what was going on. All I know is they took away games from us. And then we ended up playing against Lee High School. And we lost to them on a couple of bogus calls that I just could not believe. So it was very heartbreaking. So I could care less who won the state that year. I could care less who won the region that year. I know that we lost, and I was sick because I thought we were the best team in the region that year, and we just, it was taken away from us.
So you felt basketball-wise, things hadn't changed much, but the pressure was put on because of your success, and also the fact that you did have some Alexandria, players with Alexandria roots on the roster, right? So.
Well, see, that's, you sit up there and if people try to figure out the story and all this stuff, I see what happened to us actually impacted, the team later on because they went after, I think it was Derrick Tucker's team when they had them become ineligible because they tried to claim that everybody was recruited. And that just wasn't the case. And, so when you take away stuff like that from kids who had nothing to do with whatever's going on, I mean, we didn't know what was happening, but they were trying to say that there was recruitment going on. See, but everybody was going after Coach McCool because Coach McCool was the best coach around, and he had created a culture. Anybody can come and play. He didn't care. But bottom line is he tried to keep it as straight as possible, and that's what he did. And but people went after him. And what they did is they took away opportunities from all of us, in some kind of way, shape, or form. But even though they tried to take it away, everybody was successful because the culture was created for us to go out there and play as hard as we could, get our academics together, and be successful beyond Mount Vernon.
Yeah. Well, let's move towards the 82-83 season because, obviously some of the things that Derrick Steele is talking about remain. And this was a great team. Some would argue one of the best teams in Northern Region history. But unfortunately, people don't talk about them anymore because they're ineligible for postseason. So, and what, going into the 82-83, what was going on, and why was the team put on probation, as you guys know it, remember it?
Brian, you want to answer that one?
I was a junior in high school.
Yeah.
That's the best answer we can give. It was above our heads. I mean, I lived in Mount Vernon from 4th grade on. I mean, I know there was a lot of the recruiting stuff going on, but Frank, Tuck, Boo, Fish, Priest, everybody on this team had been in Mount Vernon for 3 years. And I don't know all the particulars, but it seemed like we were punished for what, Derrick had talked about some players back in 1980. I mean, everybody that was on the Mount Vernon team in 83 was supposed to be at Mount Vernon. It just seemed like we got in trouble for something they were bringing up to Coach McCool and his staff that maybe happened 2-3 years ago. And it impacted a team of 16, 17, and 18-year-olds who all their life wanted to play and try to win a state championship. And it prevented us from, doing that. And we had a very good team. We had a really good team that year. I mean, we had a strong,
that's why they did it.
Going to college, a lot of them scoring 1,000 points. I mean, we had a really good team, and we didn't get to showcase it. I mean, we play whoever would play us. A lot of teams wouldn't play us that year. They wouldn't play, So, McCool we played McKinley at the Capitol Center. We played Coolidge at GW. I mean, we would play wherever we could get a game. I mean, that's just, and we still only had you didn't play a full schedule, I don't think.
Right.
I think we played 20 games that year.
Yeah, that was it.
We're 18-2.
But it goes back to, like you said, the stuff that was happening in 1980. And those guys that Derrick mentioned, Mike Reed lived down the street from me before he moved to Mount Vernon. I knew Danny Buford. I knew Barry Miner. I knew those guys. A few, as well as a few other guys that transferred from TC. I've actually got an article from around that time, which there was a lot of heat being felt by TC Williams because the players were leaving. And the article speaks to that. As I was going through some old articles, I've got an article which was criticizing TC and how some of the players were leaving the school for other places. And so they were feeling some heat. And I'm sure that has something to do with it as well. But when you talk about that particular team, you have to go back, I think, the year before, because we were really good that year as well. We only lost 2 games. And, one of those games was to Woodson, and who we split that year against. And then this other game was against Hayfield in the district tournament final. And we had to play them again the next night. And, ended up beating them. I'm sorry. And then we lost to TC Williams in the first round of the region. So what, was an upset because we had beaten them twice that year. So I think that was all, a part of, going forward to the next year. And then it's hard to have this podcast and not talk about Paul Fisher, who was a heck of a player for us back then. And, talk about defensive pressure. He was built for that. And so, I just remember, getting word that we were, somehow going to be punished for not be able to play in the postseason tournament, which was a big blow to us, and especially for the seniors with Boo and with Eric and Tuck rather. And that's kind of how it went down. But, once it was done, there's nothing you can do about it. I think there might have been an appeal. And I think, when you talk about the success at Mount Vernon from an athletic standpoint, I think you still have to talk about, our principal hire who recently passed away, because, he was running things, and he was very supportive of the athletic program. And that was a big part of it. And that kind of spread through the building. So, we had great fan support and everything, but that year was just very crushing, I think, just because we couldn't go to postseason.
Right. And Derrick Tucker, did that hurt your ability to get college offers, the fact that you guys weren't eligible for postseason?
It may have, or whatever, but what can I say, nothing I can do about it. Could done about it or anything, but it is what it was, that was it.
Yeah.
We just, all I know, we were, once we knew we was on probation, I know when any team we came up against, we were going to put it on them just for that reason alone, But that just motivated us to just play even harder, and when we got on the court, just go hard.
So it's that was one of the best regional finals in the history. That was the year Tommy Amaker, Andy Heck, Pat Whitting, Underkoffler went against Brian Vaughn, Glenn Williams probably was a sophomore year, Charleston Miller. That was a great regional final. That was a 1-point game. TC won the game. Amaker scored at the buzzer, didn't count. Do you think your Mount Vernon team was on that level with those guys?
We were definitely on that level. I mean, like I said, we split with what's in that year. And so, we didn't play TC, I think, because of the situation that happened, with the probation and everything. But again, we had beaten them 2 out of 3 times a year before. They beat us in the regional first round game on a kind of a desperation type shot to beat us. But, we were pretty high then. So we would have definitely been in the mix. There's no question about it. We just had to find people that would play us, like you said earlier. Right. And so we just whenever where we had to go to play those teams.
Right.
So we would have definitely been in the mix. I mean, we did go undefeated in the district. And they weren't even close.
Weren't even close.
Yeah.
We went over 100 points 7 times that year. TC went over 100 points 8 times that year, but we went over 100 points 7 times that year. And honestly, I think we probably had, if you look at 5 positions, I think we had 3 of the top 5 defenders of that position: Tuck, Eric Brent, and Paul Fisher.
Yeah.
During that time, it was hard to score on those 3 guys.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So, and it wasn't that, and then they would score on you,
Yeah.
So, I mean, I totally believe 100% we would have been in there that year.
Yeah.
Without a doubt.
What's interesting is, as Robinson, we played both teams that year. I believe we played you guys 82, 83 as well. We lost both years. TC, we beat that year. They went second in state. But it's one of those things when you're in the same district, it's after a while, it's easy to play a team you play all the time. I'm not saying it's easy to beat them, but we always played TC tough because we played them every year, twice a year. We knew how to play them. Mount Vernon, we always had a hard time. We played you guys would kill us because we didn't really know how to prepare for you guys. But TC, we knew how to prepare for the TC. We were always big and strong, and they were always kind of skinny. Well, they were tall and great, but they were skinny, and we would try to beat them up a little bit. So that was our approach to them. But anyway, let's go to 83, 84. Brian, Frank, Andre, and my senior year. So you guys are finally off probation. You got a big cloud lifted off your back. When did you guys know that you guys were not going to be on probation that last year?
I think we knew from the beginning that it was a 1-year deal.
Oh, okay.
I hear you, Brian.
Yeah.
I think it was a 1-year deal. I don't think it was going to be longer than that. So.
Okay.
Right.
So I think the biggest impediment to your senior year was your football team, because you guys had a long run at states. You guys won the state championship in '83. So that fall. So that was the biggest thing, is getting your football players into the gym, ready for basketball season. Is that right?
It did hurt. Not getting them in the season late, but was Fish got injured. Paul Fisher got hurt at the semifinal in the football season, was out for his whole senior year of basketball. So we went from returning 3 starters to only returning 2 starters. So it really impacted our team. I think the football team actually impacted us more in 82, 83, because Fish, Frank, and Boo played football. And our first 2 losses were early in the season. We lost to St. John's. We'd only practiced together with those 3 one time. We went to St. John's on a Tuesday night, and Frank, Tucker, and Fish had only practiced 1 day with the team and weren't able to practice basketball. So we were rusty. And my senior year, Frank came back a little bit late, but Frank, he's a great athlete. It didn't affect Frank. He came back and he was ready to go. But missing Fish in 83, 84 was huge. We were counting on him. So our team completely changed, missing, Paul Fisher not playing for us. It made a big impact, and everybody had to step up. That Andre came in and took over that defensive role. And we had other guys that had their roles, that were just basically setting screens for, me and Frank. I think we called those guys the Hogs. They just set screens for us. And, that's how that team was a lot different than 82, 83.
Yeah, you guys play the way the teams play now. You guys would set picks for 25 footers. No one was doing that back then. No one was trying to set picks for guys shooting 23 footers. That's the way you guys played us. We thought it was crazy. So I remember we played you guys at Mount Vernon, January '84. I mean, I'm getting hit by Miller. Not Miller. I'm getting hit by Andrews, and Brian is shooting from 23 feet for two points.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a different game than obviously without the 3-point line. You know, everyone who can shoot wishes they had the 3-point line back then. But you know, we did have a big loss with Fish not being able to play. But you know, obviously we got another transfer with Tracy Scruggs. So and Tracy helped a lot with the scoring and rebounding, which was an added plus for us at that particular season. So you know, I think Sean coming in as a sophomore was still trying to get his feet under him, and you know, he had a particular role, and he recognized that if he wanted to be on the floor, that's what he had to do. You know, we didn't change the way we played. We still pressed, and we still, you know, wanted to run. I just think when you had someone like a Paul Fisher, and Paul was worth 6 to 8 points just on steals alone, that we had to kind of pick up. So
the thing that I always say is this: if we had Paul, now you're putting me on a secondary ball handler, because Paul would have been on the primary ball handler or whoever the scorer was for that other team. So I just think, you know, it's just missed that, because defensively, he was on another level. He really was.
Well, it's interesting because in the regional tournament that year, you guys got a bad draw because Lake Braddock drew Thomas Jefferson, which we had beaten them. It was definitely the weaker of the Final Four. You guys had to beat TC Williams, Tyrone Shaw, Calvin Wood, Glenn Williams, great team. And then, if you beat them, which you guys did, you had to beat Lake Braddock. And Lake Braddock had one of their best teams in the history of their school. They had Derrick Turner, they had Derrick Hensley, they had Ben Sanovica, guy named Charles Small, Greg Smith. Do you guys have any memories of that? I know Frank has very spotted memories of that Final Four, but Andre and Brian, do you guys have any memories of that Final Four regionals?
You know, like I look forward to that. I mean, I remember seeing Derrick Steele's team in playing in Robinson, and I was looking forward to it. I do have good memory. I remember TC came out and they stood in front of our fans, and it was like stared at our fans. They got them all riled up, and they came out. I think Calvin Wood got a dunk right off the bat, and they were doing their thing. But we wanted TC. I mean, we felt like that was what was keeping us from winning it in '82, '83. And so we were looking forward to that game. And I know, E had a great game. Shaw he went off in the first 3 quarters, but in the last quarter, I think we slowed him down. And then Lake Braddock, I remember it was tied. And then I hit a jumper to put us in the lead. And I think Frank came up with some steals down the stretch. And, I always joke with these guys. I mean, they remember more than me. It must be my memory getting old. I can't remember. All I know is we won the region, and it was a great thing.
Yeah, that the TC, after we beat Annandale, that was the quarterfinal game. The TC game, it's practice was, the 2 practices were pretty intense, and we were just very focused on that game. And it was a big win. I had posted on the thing on the site that that was my one time. I grew up playing against E pretty much all the time because he lived near where we used to go to church, and there was a basketball court right across the street. So we used to play all the time, and I could never beat this guy, never. So it was just good for one time. I could finally say to him, we got you.
Yeah. Well, how about Lake Braddock now? So I know Brian. We had played against you in travel. Derrick Turner, Derrick Hensley, and I were on the same team. So I knew you guys. I knew you from a very young age. What did you guys think about the Lake Braddock matchup? I mean,
we knew it was going to be tough. I mean, we knew we were going to be playing them in the semifinals and finals because they were from the same district. So when you break the region, just like if we would have been in at '82, '83, we would have had to beat Woodson and TC back to back. So we knew going in. So after we beat TC, we were excited. We came in the locker room. McCool was like, "You can't even celebrate we got Lake Braddock tomorrow, and they were just as physical. You know, we were a small team. We were not, I mean, I was our biggest player, even though on offense, I was, you know, technically a guard, but on, you know, on defense, I was guarding the center down the stretch. And we were a small team. We always had trouble all year with Oakton. They had big kids. You know, Woodson gave us problems that year just because of the size. So we knew it was going to be a tough game, but, you know, Derrick Hensley's a great defender. You know, Derrick Turner's a big guy. I mean, they gave us trouble on the boards like most teams did because, like I said, that wasn't our strong point. But, you know, we just found a way to win. I mean, Frank made some big plays. You know, we had the best player on the floor, and that's Frank. You know, in that game, he was the best player on the floor, and you know that carries a lot. But you know, everybody on the team had to step up, and they did. You know.
Yeah. So, Frank, do you want to add to that, or when they call you the best? Go ahead.
I mean, I think, like I said, we were pretty good at what we did. I mean, we did suffer from a lack of size. I mean, I remember, you know, going up against TC and you know, we had Lonnie Johnson guarding Tyrone Shaw. And you know, I remember Coach saying, you know, eat some garlic before the game or something. You know, you're just gonna basically face guard it, you know, which obviously he ended up with 39 points. So, and you got to keep in mind that they had won the region the previous 2 years. So, you know, they were a little bit on the streak. And I think there was a little bit of, you know, them feeling like, you know, this is our time. This is what we do. So, you know, and being from the area and playing with those guys growing up, you know, obviously it gave special meaning for me to beat them in such a big game. And, you know, I'm happy to say that I had very good success against them in football and basketball over my high school career. So, unfortunately, the one loss, like I said, knocked us out of the region my sophomore year. But the Lake Braddock game, like I said, there was no time to really celebrate the TC Williams win when you knew, you know, what had happened between TC and Lake Braddock. So it was, you know, as a typical final in the region is supposed to be, it came down to the wire. We just made enough plays to get the win. So, and I think I mentioned in the earlier podcast, the atmosphere at Robinson was just incredible. And that's, as a kid, if you see that growing up, that's something that you want to be a part of. Mm-hmm. And I'm sorry to see that it's not there anymore because of the expanded tournament. That you don't have that same atmosphere at Robinson anymore, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, it's too bad. Derrick Hensley and Vince and I would go to the state tournament every year, and we'd stay the weekend down at UVA. And so when they were playing you guys, I like to say that I was cheering for them because, you know, those are my boys. But part of me was saying, man, they're going to go to state and play, and I'm not going to be able to do it. You know, I was Robinson. And another part of me was like, who am I going to hang out with at states? So when they lost, you know, I had my running buddies for the state tournament. So we went down Charlottesville. We watched you guys play Pulaski. So here it is. We got Derrick Steele. We got Derrick Tucker. We got Frank Smith. We got Brian Miller. We got another Alexandria transplant, Michael Porter. Ended up playing for St. John's and be a tremendous player. You're playing Pulaski and Mike Porter, 5'11" guard, could jump out the gym, fast, scoring machine. You guys had just played Pulaski in football in the fall. So what did you guys think about Pulaski going into the state tournament?
I think I was the only one with any recollection of Mike because, again, I'd grown up with him and had played against him at the Rec Center League in Alexandria. So, and he was also a teammate of mine at Hammond when he was an 8th grader, and I was a freshman. You know, he never played because he moved to Pulaski. He just, like, one day he was there, the next day he was gone, and no one knew what had happened until later on. But he was always a talented, athletic guy. And, you know, that's kind of what you want to remember about him. But obviously, you know, he had taken his game to another level. And so, you know, we got to see that firsthand. But, you know, again, I think he hurt us, but, you know, they also had another kid with some size who hurt us. And I think that was the difference. And we missed some shots early. We always talk about this. We missed some shots early that we normally make, you know, not to make excuses, but, you know, I think we were always playing uphill trying to catch up. And if I think if we had, you know, had a chance to make some of those shots early or do it over again, we would probably make them. But that put us in a little bit of a hole, and we were always, you know, playing from behind.
Brian, I think you set at that time the record for points in one game. As Frank was saying, you guys missed some shots early, but in the second half, the jumpers came raining down.
I did. I had 37 that game, but I started like 0 for 8. And I tell everybody this. And when I was at Mason, I remember telling the Northern Virginia teams that won, we would allow them to practice in the arena because I had a hard time adjusting to a basket that came from the floor because all we ever shot at was high school gym. And in warmups, I was struggling to make some shots because I'd never shot on a basket that came from the floor like you have in arenas. And it took me a while to adjust to it. I missed like my first 7, 8 shots, and I think everybody was struggling. In warmups, we were struggling and I was missing some shots. So I was passing it and they were passing it right back to me. I'm like, all right, I guess I'll shoot it if you don't want to shoot it. I mean, I didn't take a lot of shots. I was like 15 for 33. I mean, I was devastated when the game was over. I just thought that was a terrible shooting night because in my senior year, I was usually over 50% all the time. I know I took a lot of shots, but I shot a lot of layups. I mean, with Frank playing point, we got a lot of steals in transition. And if I was open, Frank found me for a layup. So I always had a good shooting percentage. So that game I did miss some shots that I normally don't miss, but I mean, I just joked that I could shoot. I got a shot off a minute. I got 33 shots off in 32 minutes. It's hard to do.
Yeah. My recollection of that game as a supporter, I was definitely cheering for you guys. It was an exhausting game. I mean,
It was.
I felt like it went back and forth, and there was like no momentum. It just went back and forth, for 32 minutes, and you guys could never get up that hill. Just kept. It got closer, but could never get over the hump and get.
They jumped out they got that 10-point lead, and it was just always we cut it to 6. They go. Maybe that at that time having a 3-pointer may have helped. We could have hit a couple of threes to get back in.
Right.
It was hard to come back when you were down 10. It was just a little tougher.
Yeah.
A little tougher.
Yeah.
And they were pretty good. I mean, give them
They
credit.
were good.
They played really well. And Mike got in foul trouble in the second half. And again, that's when the big guy, I can't remember his name, he really hurt us during that stretch when we beat him a bigger run. But he really hurt us down the stretch until they got Mike back in the game. So, but they were a really good team. And, he, like I said, he had taken his game to another level since the last time I'd seen him back as an 8th grader. So
just to play devil's advocate for a while. I mean, McCool did not play a lot of players. That was his style back then, at least. Do you think going to a 94-foot court, playing a transition game with very little subs, you think it's a tough thing to do at that level? I mean, obviously, Coach McCool's had tremendous success at the state tournament, but he does not play a lot of players in big games.
I would say this because we played in that game, and this is the one thing that I would probably change about my senior year if I could go back in time and change it. If we had had Paul out there, I do believe we would have won that game.
Yeah.
Because I just think that extra defensive punch would have been there. I think we could have gotten past the 6-4 2-point if we'd have had just that one more defender. That's just my firm believing.
I agree. I agree. We needed one more athlete. They had a lot of good athletes. We would have one more excellent athlete, which Paul Fisher was. He was an exceptional athlete.
Yeah.
and I don't think you really, me personally, I think you get accustomed. We were playing most of the time all year anyway, so on the floor. But I think you pick and choose your spots, and I don't remember us being fatigued during that game, at least not myself. So, like I said, we just got in the hole and we just couldn't get out of it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I mean, I can't speak for Frank, but I don't think we were ever taken out of a game unless we were in foul trouble down the stretch.
No.
Right.
I don't think we ever came out.
McCool didn't have like a rotation.
No, I would not.
No.
Yeah. So, well, Frank and I have argued whether or not you guys could have beaten Jefferson Huguenot with. I argue that's one of the best teams in the history of the state. They had Peter Wolfick was a start at Richmond. Derrick probably knows a little. Derrick still probably knows a little about Peter, even though he was older than Peter. They had a guy named Alvin Lee, who was a 20-point scorer at Alabama. It was an amazing team. I think McCool would have held the ball against them, but I would have thought it was a tough matchup anyway. But anyway, we can save that argument for another day. But I'd like to talk a little bit about what being a Mount Vernon graduate and playing for McCool meant to you guys at the next level. So Derrick Steele, you had a tremendous career at Madison. I got a chance to watch you at Mason, as I said earlier, a few times. Always loved watching you play. Little guy doing your thing, and it was an emerging league you guys are playing in as well. So talk a little bit about your post Mount Vernon career, about playing at James Madison for a program that was emerging.
Well, when you sit down and talk about being prepared and all that stuff, and what Coach McCool meant to me for, when I went to college, I'm like the bumblebee. I'm not supposed to fly. You know what I mean? I really wasn't. I was recruited for football and got a chance to play basketball because they gave me a scholarship because I could play point. So I was prepared, and they needed a point guard to go out there and have impact. So when you sit down and you look at, it's kind of hard to talk about this kind of stuff, but I know I had an impact on Mount Vernon High School, and then I also had an impact on JMU. We put it on the map. You know what I mean? So the teams that we were there, but I attribute all of that to the preparation that Coach McCool gave me so that I could actually be ready, and be able to do the things that I was able to do to help James Madison do what we needed to do. Before I get away from that, though, I want to make sure that the one thing, there's two things I want to say. One, our state championship was the second best team at Mount Vernon High School. The team that did not get a chance to play was the first. They were absolutely phenomenal. And the way that you could really look at that, look at all the guys that went to college and played basketball. It was just an incredible, incredible team. And, we would have had a good game if we had a chance to play against them. The superintendent of West Point may have been the difference. We called him boss man, Darrell Williams. But bottom line is, when you look at the two teams, they were definitely the best. And I think the second thing I would like to say is I was probably maybe the second best point guard, because Frank Smith was absolutely phenomenal. Best point guard ever to be at Mount Vernon High School. The things that he could do as a point guard was absolutely phenomenal. And to be able to watch him navigate on both sides, of the court, it was just phenomenal to watch. So, as we go through and we look at that, the only thing I want to say about that is maybe we helped develop, the talent that was there, cultivated and all that stuff. Because, winning the state championship, it gave people the thought that they can win it. But the team that came after us, they were phenomenal. They were the best team in Mount Vernon history. So we were all prepared, I believe, and that's kind of what I wanted to say.
Great, thanks. How about thanks, Derrick. How about Derrick Tucker? So where did you end up playing in college?
I went to a small school, CIAA, Catawba College.
Sure.
Coming from the Mount Vernon program, you might as well say you was ready, because you was already fundamental sound coming out of there. I consider myself, I wasn't that really athletic, but I was fundamental sound. That really helped me a lot. McCool, and he helped me a lot as far as understanding the game itself, and not only McCool, even Mr. Crowley, Todd, the assistant coach, Todd Crowley. He did most of the big man, work in the paint. The only downfall that I really have about my years at Mount Vernon, I had no choice, because I was the biggest man. I was the tallest, biggest man. I had to play big man. But only downfall, I did a lot of my back to the basket. Once I got to the college level, I had to do a lot of front, facing. And once I adjust that, and that's what really, got my game going once I was on the college level before I got hurt. My first 2 years, I was really balling. Once one senior went down, once I got on the court, nobody got this position back. I was there until I got hurt. You know how that process goes. You get hurt, they're gonna find that spot. But I coming out in Mount Vernon, I don't think if I didn't go to Mount Vernon, I don't think I probably wouldn't have went to college.
Yeah. So
know?
Derrick, you were a 6'4", you were a 6'4" post at Mount Vernon.
Yeah, 6'4",
Yeah.
6'5". I was the post, and I was guarding all the big guys. So,
Right.
so I had to be in the post a lot. Once I got into college level, I had to, change my game up a little bit as far as facing the basket, and but it helped a lot in the college level because once we played big, and if they put me at a 2 or 3 spot, I could guard a little smaller than me. I'm in the post, and then when I got in the post, I know what to do. I'm in the post game, so that helped me along there when I got a smaller person on me when I, in the college level.
Andre, once you go next, did you play basketball next up? I know you also played football too, right?
No, I didn't play football.
Oh, you okay?
No. No, it's funny. I went to Mason with Brian and just tried to walk on. It didn't. But one of the assistant coaches, I stayed there for a year, worked out with me and stuff, and got me to Shenandoah. So I played at Shenandoah for a couple of years. After that, I actually went there right after Ben Kane. Ben Kane was there and then left school. So I was there the next year after.
Ben Kane was a James Wood.
James Wood,
legend. Yeah, James Wood legend.
Yeah.
Him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think he had a twin brother or a brother that was a good player as well.
Yes.
Yeah. So great. Okay. So Frank, obviously, you had a big decision to make with football and basketball, and I think people who didn't know you, I knew you from playing basketball, but I didn't know you that well. We would have all assumed you were going to play football. You're a great basketball player, but football, you were, parade All-American. So maybe you could tell us a little bit about that decision and about your Old Dominion career.
Yeah, I think that's what people thought, without even asking me what sport I was going to play. I always knew I was going to play basketball. And like I said earlier, I think in the earlier podcast, I think I kind of egged on that thinking because I was taking football visits to some, obviously high major schools. And so by doing that, I think people just made the assumption that I was going to play football when I just wanted to visit those places and visit those cities. That was my only reason for doing it. But I had no intentions of playing football in college. It was always going to be basketball. But the way the calendar worked and everything, that's when those visits were taken during football season. So, that it wasn't that big of an issue for me, but it was just a letdown, I think, to a lot of people to think that I was going to be playing basketball and not play football. So that was just my way of just getting to see some places and kind of see the country, so to speak.
Yeah.
But, I go back to what Derrick, I appreciate those words, Derrick, but, my success at Mount Vernon and beyond was as a result of playing against Derrick Steele and playing against Paul Fisher and Andy Priest and all those guys and, Boo and Tuck and playing with and against them and having a battle every day. Nothing was given. And I think that's one of the things that made us all pretty good players. We competed every day, and I look forward. You think forward to the 1988 Mount Vernon team, which my brother was on. He was able to look at me and see my career at Mount Vernon and decide that's what he wanted for himself. So it pushed him to be a better player, and obviously he ended up playing at Old Dominion for a couple of years after going to junior college. So, I think that that tradition, you get ready, get the next person ready. And I think that's kind of what happened in Mount Vernon for a number of years with the talent that we had there. So, but yeah, so I went to Old Dominion, and it was a situation that I thought was pretty good for me because of the fact that they had a senior point guard and, that I felt that I could, at least get some playing time my first year. And then it went beyond that because I was able to actually start halfway through the season. And I think the main reason, going back to what Derrick was talking about with his team, I was able to get the ball to people. We had scorers on that team, and I was able to come in and distribute the ball to the right people and keep everybody happy. And so I had a pretty good career, obviously, at ODU, and went to a couple of NCAA tournaments, went to an NIT tournament. And, that got me into coaching. So it all comes back to, a number of great coaches that I had over my career with Coach McCool and some others at the youth league level, at the junior high level at Hammond, I had a great coach. So, it just all kind of worked out for me in that regard.
Yeah, that's great. I would second what you said about Derrick Steele. playing against Derrick, I was always a pretty fast guy. Derrick had a way of putting his shoulders or his body against you and just throw you off balance. He's one of the toughest guys I ever had to play against, for sure. So definitely Frankie as well. So Brian, so you ended up going to George Mason, which was very great choice, because George Mason was an emerging, not just emerging program, but emerging school. So it was Fairfax County was growing, and as a college, it became the College of Northern Virginia. And you had this coach, Joe Harrington, that was ambitious, a former University of Maryland guy, and he was building a great program. So you got a chance to really be involved with a college and a program that was really just growing and really doing great things.
Yeah. I mean, it was a good time for me there. And when I first got there, I mean, like everybody has already alluded to, playing at Mount Vernon, Coach McCool was an innovator for us. I mean, we did everything like a college program. In the fall, we lifted weights, we ran, we had to do 2 miles in 12 minutes. So when I got to Mason, I was surprised that a lot of the guys that were coming in with me as freshmen didn't do that. So we were running in preseason, I'm beating guys, I'm in the weight room, I'm almost stronger than everybody on the team. And it was just because of the preparation. Then when the season started, I knew how to play defense. I knew the shell drill. I knew where to be, how to play. And, that helped me, get on the court, a lot quicker as a freshman than, probably most other freshmen do. And, I had a good career at Mason. I'm proud of it. We had, Joe Harrington was there for me for 3 years. My last year, I was with Rick Barnes, and he actually was the one that recruited me when I was at Mason. He was an assistant at Mason my freshman year. So, I was with him my senior year, and, and I wish I'd had a college three-pointer all my career. We only had it 2 years. I did shoot 49% from it the last 2 years.
Wow, that's awesome.
I just wish that, I grew up with it, because the game has changed. We only shot like 5 or 6 threes a game. Well, in today's game, I'd probably shoot 15 a game, but it's just the way it is. But, I had a good career, Mason, and I owe it all to, everybody in the screen right here, at Mount Vernon, that made me the player I was. Like I played against them every day, one-on-one, playing these guys one-on-one. When I went to Mason, I play everybody. Let's play one-on-one, and I would always win because I was good at it. I learned it going against these guys. I learned how to get my shot off against guys quicker, faster, stronger. That's what makes you a better player.
Yeah. So that's great. So did you guys, I know Frankie coached for a long time. I know Derrick coached. Did you guys, when you started coaching, did you try to coach with the principles and the style you learned from Coach McCool? I mean, it seems obvious that would be the case.
Yeah, I coached my son's AAU team for a number of years, and I tried to do it. I just didn't have the talent and the athletes to play, 44, pick them up full court like we did and run and trap. But I did do the shell drill. I coached nothing but man. I wouldn't play any zone. So we played man defense, but we couldn't do the ball pressure and deny like I wanted to. I didn't have the athletes, but everything else, the motion offense, the, playing hard, things like that. Yeah.
That's good. Yeah. How about you, Frankie, or Derrick Steele? I know you guys, you spent some time coaching.
Yeah, it's hard not to, install or apply the principles that you learn, at the high school level. I mean, because he was such a great teacher, and any situation he had an answer for. It was always interesting to see him come up with ideas, because a lot of times we would face triangle and twos or box and ones, or gimmick defenses or stuff like that, or people were trying to find ways to beat our press. So we had to be, prepared for stuff like that. So it's hard not to be able to remember that stuff when you get on, in the coaching side. So I used it quite often when I could. That was always my input, was coming from, what I learned at Mount Vernon. So I've always said he's one of the best X and O coaches I've ever played for. Obviously, he just had an answer for everything, it seemed. And, he was able to allow you to do what you did best on the floor. And in my particular case, I'm sure Derrick can speak to this as well, but just being a coach on the floor. But he gave you a lot of information, and you had to be talented enough to be able to use that information. and you can and just be able to, get people in the right place, give people shots that they need, and keep everybody comfortable and buying into what we're trying to do. So yeah, you use that stuff all the time, and I can always remember. I have certain plays in my head that I remember that he had against a boxing one that I was using at the college level. Suggesting to the college coaches that I coached for. That was pretty successful, and it was very simple stuff, but it was just one of those things that you just don't forget.
Derrick Steele, you want to?
Yeah, well, I would agree. I mean, I was lucky enough to actually coach with Coach McCool. I was his assistant when I came back out of college. And, that to me was the experience of the lifetime right there. He had a connection with Dean Smith, and we used to go down there and they would allow us to go through all of their information. And Coach McCool, one of the things I learned was he always wanted to learn. He always wanted to pick up whatever he could pick up. So, he continually worked at the game, and he taught us how to work at the game. So, with the pressing style and the man-to-man style, and the best way to stop a guy from scoring is don't let him catch the ball. All of us were taught that. But bottom line is, we were taught defense first, and the offense came after that. And we tried to emulate that the best we could throughout the process. And I think as it was said, you would just hope that you had the talent to be able to do that. The culture that was developed, people wanted to do it. But as time started to go on, people didn't always want to do it the same way. So you had to kind of adjust if you could, but it was hard to get away from that because we knew how much it prepared us to be successful, not just in the game of basketball, but in life.
Yeah. Do you guys ever think that we all love basketball? I played against you guys, watch you guys play. We all love it, but none of us are really, in the weeds in terms of coaching anymore. Do you think it's more of a generational thing? Like those guys, it's hard to spend a whole career coaching basketball, economics, or maybe it takes a toll. What do you think it is that guys like McCool, they spend their whole lives in the game? But guys like us who love the game and played hard and coached, I refereed too. We're no longer, in the weeds anymore. What do you guys think it is?
Yeah, I think it's individual circumstances. I think sometimes if you're at the high school level, maybe you have a little bit more longevity. But I think if you're at the college level as an assistant like I was, I think you're looking for your shot to become a head coach. And you do that for a number of years because you enjoy the game and you love, the players and all that goes along with it. But, at some point, things happen and you got to make adjustmps. And I know I'm speaking from my own experience. So, but you still stay involved in the game somehow if you can. I often hear from people who have a different take on today's kids, so to speak. And, some think, hey, today's kids are different. And then there are those who just think that, we allow them to be different. We don't hold them to a high standard like we used to. And so there's varying opinions about that whole thing. So I think it's, for my situation, I think it's just an individual circumstance of what happened with me. But I do think it's the environment is forcing a lot of good coaches out of the game. From what I understand from talking with coaches that have decided to move on to bigger and better things, they just don't want to deal with some of the things that are going on that come along with the game, as opposed to dealing with whether it's the perennial situation where kids not playing enough or whatever. If you weren't playing enough at Mount Vernon, sometimes you could point to a kid and say, well, he's never in the gym. How you expect to get better? And parents couldn't argue with that. All you do is go to the gym. And it was surprising the number of kids or kids in high school that didn't have a gym that was open all summer. We were one of the few, obviously. That's why we got so many players from other places. But I think it's just circumstances. And so.
Anyone else want to add to that, or?
Yeah. It's not. In Mount Vernon, parents weren't allowed in the gym. That's how that was solved. There was no parents involved, and so we never had that. I don't think McCool would say he didn't have that issue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, parents make it tough. So, well, look, guys.
Can
What's
I add
that?
one
What?
more thing? I think one
Yeah.
of the things that I didn't realize, and I don't think most people understood this, you know, Coach McCool had a lot of pressure from the community. You know what I mean? And the pressure was, it was a black-white thing at one point in time.
Right.
And, you know, and it was just weird because Coach McCool didn't, and he would tell us, he didn't care whether you're black or white. All you need to do is be in the gym and come out and play. But you
Right.
had a lot of kids that didn't think that they could compete, you know, because it was they made it a black-white thing and the community became an issue. So you know, the thing that was interesting about that, he managed that. I think Hire helped manage that. And it was something I had to deal with, which I didn't even realize was an issue when I became the head coach at Mount Vernon. I just didn't know that it had occurred. And there was a lot of stuff that was behind the scenes. But, you know, the thing that I have to, you know, laud Coach McCool about is he never really got too hung up on that. And he never let his players get hung up on it. Bottom line is, if you wanted to come and play, you got to here and play. You play with everybody and come out here and compete. And if you can compete, he knew he was teaching you how to be better at life. So that's what, you know, I think that was just part of who he was and how he did things. Winning was important, you know, because if you're winning, people are going to listen to you and you're going to make some choices that are going to be able to help you. So he just wanted to help kids learn how to win. And, you know, a lot of people just took it wrong, did some things with it and made some bad assumptions. But bottom line is, man, I think all of us are so thankful for him taking the time out in the summer just to keep the gym open so we can come and play. You know what I mean? And I just think it was just something that we cannot, there's no way that we can explain how important that was to us. Not even close.
That's great. Well, look, guys. I really appreciate you guys taking time to talk to me. You know, obviously, you guys have accomplished so much on the courts. You know, watching you guys playing against you, and just seeing your success, the way you guys competed. Always good dudes as well. You know, it's been a pleasure to be to compete with you guys at times, even though I didn't often put up a whole lot of competition. But I am glad you guys decided to do this podcast. I think people are going to love it. One thing I realized about Mount Vernon is you guys, the folks from that era, are very loyal and they love to reminisce about the wins, the memories you guys had. You guys have a rich tradition. I'm sorry.
No, I was in the Gunston district back in the days.
Oh, it was a great district. It was. I mean, it was small. It was 6 teams, but you guys had great rivalries, great competition. So anyway, I'm really glad we got a chance to do this, guys. I can't wait to post this up and you know, get the feedback on it.
Oh, yeah. Appreciate it, man.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for having us.
All right, let's keep in touch.
All right.
Okay.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay,
Okay.
guys. Thank you.
You guys take it easy.
Good
All right,
to see
fellas.
Easy,
everybody.
everybody. All right.
Good job.